So today we're diving into Chris Guillebeau's The $100 Startup. Now, this isn't your typical business book filled with a bunch of abstract theories. Nope. Think of it more like a roadmap, one that's built from the real-world stories of hundreds of people who started actual, profitable businesses for less than what you'd spend on a nice dinner out. Let's dig into how they did it.
I mean, it's a pretty bold question, right? In a world that's always talking about venture capital and complicated business plans, it seems, well, almost impossible. But what if the rules of the game have totally changed? What if starting a business is way more accessible than you've ever been led to believe?
$100. That's it. According to all the research in the book, this small amount is often the only thing that separates a cool idea from a real money-making business. And these aren't just made-up stories. We're talking about real case studies of everyday people who turned a tiny investment into a whole new life of freedom.
So how is that even possible? Well, we're going to follow a 5-step founder's journey. We'll start with the big cultural shift that makes this all work. Then we'll get into the fun stuff, finding your idea, making an offer people can't refuse, and finally, launching and actually making a profit. And it all builds up to one super important takeaway.
Okay, first things first, we have to understand the world we're living in. We're in the middle of what you could call a micro-revolution. All those old barriers to starting a business, needing tons of cash, finding investors, having a fancy business degree, they're all just crumbling away. And that's making room for a whole new kind of entrepreneur. And this really gets to the heart of who we're talking about. See, micro-entrepreneurship isn't just for the Silicon Valley tech gurus or the business school grads. It's for stay-at-home parents, it's for retirees, it's for anyone with a full-time job who's looking for a side hustle. It's really about designing a life based on your own terms, not just punching a clock for someone else. All right, so if pretty much anyone can do it, where on earth do you start? Well, it all kicks off with finding a winning idea. And listen, this isn't about inventing the next iPhone. It's about finding a sweet spot that already exists.
The magic formula? It's really not magic at all. It's the simple intersection of what you absolutely love to do and what other people actually need. This is where so many people trip up. They either follow their passion into a total vacuum, creating something nobody wants, or they chase a market need they couldn't care less about and just burn out. Your passion is the fuel, for sure, but a genuine market need is what turns that passion into something people will be happy to pay you for.
So where do you find that market need? Well, it really comes down to tapping into some basic human desires. When you get right down to it, a successful business does one of two things. It either gives people more of what they want, like love or money or time, or it gives them less of what they don't want, like stress and uncertainty. It's really that fundamental.
So you've got this great idea. Now what? How do you package it into an offer that people just can't say no to? This brings us to the planning phase, but I promise it's not what you think.
That's right. You can breathe a sigh of relief. The goal here is not to write a perfect 50-page document. The goal is to avoid getting stuck in analysis paralysis. The book argues that all you need to do is get your core ideas down on a single page so you can move on to what really matters, taking action. So let's break this down real quick. First, a mission statement so short it could fit in a tweet. This forces you to be crystal clear. I mean, if you can't explain it simply, you probably don't understand it well enough yourself. Second, a realistic look at your overhead. And the key here is to keep this number as low as humanly possible. Third, a simple marketing plan. How are people going to find you? And finally, the sales plan, your strategy to get that very first sale, because that's the proof that this whole thing is real.
Now, the absolute heart of your plan is the offer itself. And this is so important. An irresistible offer is all about value. People don't buy features, they buy benefits. They're buying what your product or service does for them, how it makes them feel. It has to feel like an amazing deal because the value they get is just so much greater than the price they pay.
All right, with a great idea in your back pocket and a killer offer ready to go, it's time for the most exciting part, the launch. This is where the rubber meets the road, where your idea finally meets the real world and starts to become a real business.
A successful launch doesn't just happen on a single day. It actually starts before launch day, with a pre-launch to build some buzz. You just follow this simple, non-pushy sequence. First, you let people know something cool is on the way. Then, you explain the value, what's in it for them. And finally, right before you go live, you give them the details and a clear, simple call to action.
And when it comes to promoting your business, the book's philosophy is super clear. Forget the hard sell. The goal isn't just to make a one-time transaction. It's to build a genuine relationship. When you focus on being truly helpful, sales just become the natural, easy result of that trust you've built.
But let's be real for a second. A business that doesn't make money is just a hobby. So profitability comes from 3 key ideas. First, be absolutely ruthless about your spending. Only buy what's necessary. Second, price your offer based on the benefit it provides, not just what it costs you to make. And third, find smart ways to get paid multiple times for work you only do once. Think things like creating an online course or an ebook.
So, we've covered the idea, the offer, and the launch. But if there's one single lesson that sits underneath everything in the $100 startup, it's this. You can research forever, you can perfect your plan endlessly, but real, actual progress only comes from doing. This is the absolute core of it all. Planning can so easily become a crutch. It's just a sophisticated form of procrastination, really, born from the fear of taking that first real step.
So let's just recap this whole journey. You do not need a fortune to get started. You need to find where what you love meets a real customer need. You should build trust and relationships instead of just trying to make a sale. And you have to remember that a business has to actually earn money. But above all else, the most important thing you can possibly do is just start.
And that leaves us with one final thought. The opportunity is right there. The path is so much simpler than you think, and the cost to get in the game has never ever been lower. Your $100 business is waiting for you. So the only question left is, what will you build?